our year. We will be recording the meeting. Thanks, Carrie, especially for folks who weren't able to make it. We'll just be sharing it with them. And this time we're just going to do attendance by like taking a screenshot and stuff. So we don't need everybody to say anything, but if you want to type anything in the chat just to say, hey, we'd love to have that too. Carrie will be sharing her screen in a second, I think, right? Or do I need to?
You were planning on doing it.
Okay. Okay, I can do that. Let me do that. And I need to just be made host. And Andrew, I don't know if you wanted to kick off officially kick off our meeting.
Well, thank you, Katie and Sarah and Carrie. I just wanted to just recognize all the folks. I just looked quickly at the participants, and these are the stalwarts, and all of you guys have continued to show up I know Katie will go through all the different things that we've been working on, but I know there's various committees that everybody's been showing up for. The People's Convention project people have been showing up for. It's no secret that our country is in a state right now that I think arguably, no matter who you are, is one of the kind of scariest times for our nation. And the fact that we as a group have stayed together now, coming up on 2 years, and have built the infrastructure and the kind of the underpinning of a real organization and a real model that we're already obviously beginning to work on figuring out how to scale it is huge. And it's huge that we all come from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different political beliefs. So we're a small and mighty crew, but we are proof positive that this kind of work can succeed. So I just want to obviously just say thank you for your continued belief and support, belief in our staff and in Katie. And we have a lot of work to do this year. We have the people is really primed in our position right now as the key leader in grassroots organizing to do anything on a national scale. Any of the major reforms that have to happen in our country to move us forward have to happen from the grassroots. They have to happen in a nonpartisan way. And we're from what I can tell, the only group that's doing that in a real and genuine way. So we have to keep after it. We're still a small, mighty force. We're still figuring out how to keep our finances going, our staff going, and doing all that stuff. But you guys, the House of Delegates, is the source of all of our energy and all of our kind of faith in what we're doing. So thank you for being here. Thank you for believing, and just keep doing what you've been doing. That's my opening message for the meeting.
Awesome. Officially call this meeting to order. Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to share my screen. All right. So look at all these good looking folks. Hello again, delegates. We're so excited to see you. We have had a couple changes since we met last. Julian has decided to run for office, which is really exciting. Julian from Florida, but it did mean he had to step off of the House of Delegates. We don't have active politicians on. Bryce got a new job, and so he's still active volunteer, but has had to step away on there. And we had one delegate who also had some health concerns. So we were at equal, like 30%, 30%, 30% for conservative, liberal, moderate. That has changed a little bit since we met last. So I want to kind of challenge us to definitely be thinking about who can we be recruiting once our next round of House of Delegates recruitment will be up, which should be, when is that, Carrie? Like springtime? I think springtime. Yes. Oh, you're not.
Sorry, I had to find myself on the little thing to unmute. Yeah, we'll begin in late spring and then have the slate ready to go early summer.
Yeah. The exciting part I'd say though is from new volunteers, most volunteers answer our survey question of asking how they identify politically. And since the new year, we've actually seen our fastest growing category are both our conservative folks, which is very exciting. So I think we have a good round of prospects, but again, definitely want to get that representation. I think the other thing we see from this map is that the middle of America, we are missing. We need more folks from states that are in the middle of our country. So as if you can start to think about that as well. But we've grown, we've become more reflective of our country. And I think that's all very exciting. We've had a lot of you stepping up into new roles and positions as well, which is great. So for today, and there will be some times for folks to talk, but if you want to go on mute in between, just so we don't get any feedback, that would be great. But we asked all of you guys to think about what was your vision for 2021 and what are you really hoping the people can accomplish. We'll talk about that. We've got our priority goals for the year that I want to get feedback on and also see how they resonate with you guys. And then our budget to help make those goals happen. We have an updated job board for where do we need folks right now. And I know some of you are already fully maxed out. Some of you have hopped into some committees, but maybe are looking for a different fit. So we'll go over that. And then we have a special request too about how do we raise our profile as an organization. So we'll kind of end the meeting with that. Throughout all of it, if you have any questions, comments, and I'm blabbering on too much, please just type it in the chat for Zoom. There'll be a couple different times too that I'll pause so that we have time for everybody to get unmuted who wants to. And at the very end, we'll stay on as well for any just other questions that maybe you don't want to ask in front of everybody or that we can help problem solve in the moment. So, excited. So from our vision board, and this was brought up, this is a great idea brought from our governance committee, and Betty actually, I think, was the designer of this. We asked folks to send a picture if you had one of what you saw, of your hopes for the people, or to write a statement about that. And if you weren't able to do that yet, if you haven't submitted a statement or a picture, if you want to comment in the chat with kind of your hope or vision, I think that would be good. And I don't know, I know we've got Kathy, Betty. I don't know if you guys would mind maybe reading your statements of folks who did already contribute, but I think that could be really great. So Betty, I don't know if I can call on you first since this was your great idea, but if you don't mind, I'd love for you to read yours.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. I would like for the people to spend time this coming year seeking to understand what truly divides our country. And the picture down at the bottom right is making sure our voices are heard. And oftentimes I feel like that's not the case. So thank you for running with this idea. I hope everybody enjoys it.
I love it. Thank you. Who else is on the line? Kathy, do you mind reading yours? No, I saw you.
Sure. So my statement is that the people will create a movement of Americans creatively maladjusted to partisanship and political corruption. And of course, that concept comes from a beautiful series of speeches that Dr. King gave in 65 and 66. And I'll just read one quote where he talks about this. The saving of our world from pending doom will come not through the complacent adjustment of the conforming majority, but through the creative maladjustment of a non-conforming minority.
Awesome, thank you. Gisela, I see you on here, and I think you shared one, if you don't mind reading yours. Oh, you might have to unmute.
Hello.
Hey.
So, what I wrote is that I hope that the people can accomplish and work together towards positive communication and listen to different point of views.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Kobe?
Mine is to promote effective debate etiquette, kind of a spinoff from Gisella's.
Nice. Karen, I think I saw you.
Yes. Hi.
Hello.
Mine was short and simple. It's one with the hands and the heart with the hands. And my vision was to develop a solid roadmap so that we can strive for national unity this year.
Awesome. Love it. Lupe, I think I saw you.
Mine is to extend our reach to a national level by creating coalitions to move forward in unity. And with that, I provided a quote that I like from Cesar Chavez, which is the preservation of one's own culture does not require contempt or disrespect to the other cultures. So I think that is very important as we get to know each other, we're comfortable with each other, but I think in the scheme of just looking back at all of this, it is about unity and understanding each other, which is why I love the work. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know Tony couldn't make it. I think Rachel couldn't make it either, but I'm glad they could still contribute. And like I said, if other people who didn't make it onto this board, if you want to comment in the chat with yours, that would be great. And if you have a picture, you want to send like a hyperlink to it, or you can email Carrie or I too, and we can send out another one of this. So what I was really glad to see is I think that this is really what our focus is. I saw a lot of common themes around how do we really provide a roadmap, how do we provide the tools, how do we be the place where we can actually get this understanding and quantify it, but also do something about it. And I think that our goals line up with that this year. I also want to challenge each of us to be thinking about the ways that it might not line up with that, and what does that mean, and what adjustments can we make or should we be making for this to happen. So just thank you guys all. It was very inspiring. I shared it with the staff this morning too, and it was just it's great to see such strong leadership from all of you guys too, and to see all the commonalities there. I think it also speaks a lot to the moment that we're in right now as well. So for 2021, we have some top priorities around programming, and I'll get into some more specifics, but really going into our next year of growth, there were three main concepts that we wanted to do. One was we wanted to expand our base. We want a house of delegates, but we also want, volunteers and Americans that we're reaching that is broader and more inclusive and that can have a bigger impact. And so we want to be working on activities that can help us expand that base and engage the base. We want to increase our impact. So with the programs that we're already doing, how can we take them to the next level? How can we do more? How can we really deliver those results that we're hoping to do? And the last one is we're still building some of our foundational assets. As a startup, there's, over the last year, we've done a lot of great work, like getting an HR policy and getting a donor funder policy. And it's not always the most exciting work, but it is so necessary for us to actually be able to grow and scale as well as function. And so there's some elements of that we keep wanting to do this year. I'll start with the expanding base. So one of our big programs for this, we have been doing a assembly every year. So some of you were at our one in DC with 100 people that in 2020, and that was in 2019. In May of 2020, we did it virtually, which was really great. We came up with action statements that built off of this. And then for this next year, we have an even bigger vision of what if we tried to, first of all, what we've been doing is we've been asking other folks, what are other organizations too? Do you also see this as a moment of unity and wanting to come together? Do you have similar goals to the people's, and would you be interested in maybe trying to expand this conversation to more Americans with us? And we want to be able to do that. And we also want to be able to get that next level of detail for, we have our declaration, but what does it mean to take action at the federal level and the local level on these items? And what can we continue to agree on, find common ground on that gets to those specifics? And what are the ways that we can connect with each other to then implement these changes? the second bullet on the expand the base is this nonpartisan reformers coalition. So a big part of what we do is navigating the political process. How do we actually not only agree and feel good about agreeing, but do something about it? There's been a lot of, so obviously our win in Michigan with the anti-gerrymandering proposal, that's the background and information I come with. There's a lot of other groups that we've helped over the last year to that. And there's also just folks that have had citizens bringing change for many years through a ballot initiative process or local laws. And we want to work to get the best practices from all of them, and to also see, do they have citizen networks that want to continue to engage both nationally and locally? And what would that mean? And what would that look like? So some of the things we're hoping to do this year with that coalition is just see who's really interested in also having a vision like the people's and seeing if they would like to join, what that would look like, and trying to hold some events where we can highlight the voices of everyday Americans who are driving change, to try and show the obstacles that get in the way for everyday Americans when trying to make change. We will be doing a panel at the Harvard Business School. I'm sorry, not business school, that wouldn't make sense. The Harvard Kennedy School, which is like their policy center. And we're going to be trying to actually quantify the best practices from 6 different people who've brought these reforms and see what similarities and differences there are. And we're hoping to provide that as like a report, both to funders who are looking to help support organizations like the people, to show why our tactics are different, and maybe they take a little bit longer because we're more intentional about community engagement, but how they lead to these results consistently. And we're also hoping we can just put that out there in general to inspire people to want to make change. Then we have our community hour. So that was actually started thanks to Sonia Riley and David Valente when we as an organization got faced with COVID, like the whole world did. We looked internally and we said, what do we want our response to be? And what was really beautiful out of that is David and Sonia came up with the idea that we want to make sure everybody in this time of isolation knows that at least once a week, there's a group of people who are here and excited to connect with them. And that we want to keep relationships built up, even if it has to be virtually for right now. What's funny is at the beginning of the pandemic, not everybody was getting to the virtual point. You know, not everybody was doing Zoom calls all the time. So it felt like a radical idea. I think we're all probably on a lot more video calls now, but it's been really exciting to just have that consistent once a week. And we want to expand the amount of people who are participating in that, and maybe even look at how we might change that to grow it and expand it. And the last one is profile building. So we want to make sure that we're using our social media channels to reach people. We want to be able to do news articles on different things. We want to be able to highlight you guys as our House of Delegates members and be able to show the real faces that are fighting for an America where we can find alignment without giving up what makes us our own identities, and show that there's another way to do it. So those are expanding base opportunities. And if you have any questions on that, like I said, please put them in the chat and then we can talk about them too. The next one is our increasing impact. So we have our New Hampshire state pilot, which you guys have heard a lot about. I'll actually be talking a little bit more about that. And we have Terry on the line. And I know I didn't ask you to say anything, Terry, so I won't put you two on the spot, but she's really been helping lead our effort there, which is very exciting. We have our Voting Rights Committee, which has a lot too. I've got the goals later on, which Betty and Mike started up this past year because they were feeling like there was a lot of people who wanted to work on these, and they've done a beautiful job growing that committee and being able to get it to that. How do we get to that next level of delivering more action, of making more of an impact? And then the third part for really increasing our impact is our consulting model. And what that is we work with groups of citizens who have identified what they want to change in their state, and maybe they are starting a campaign or they're thinking of starting a campaign, and we try to act as a resource center of best practices, of if we have volunteers in our network who are excited and want to work on a project like that. So maybe there's a volunteer who really likes thinking about primaries, and a state reaches out to us looking for somebody who wants to help do research on primaries. We help make those connections. So we're going to be doing some of that. This past year was really busy for that because it was an election year. So there were lots of campaigns. And we'll be toning that down a little bit, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then our last one for building foundational assets. So we have a model, we have experience, we have a lot of other groups that we've worked with that have really great tools like built-in letter to the editor campaigns or spreadsheets that help you track volunteers, like kind of the basic building blocks of how do you actually make change. And we're putting together a playbook and a workbook so that not only members of the people could use this, or a group of people through the people could use this as like a guide, but also we could just put it out there as a general resource so that Americans who are looking to make the government more accountable and responsive have something they can go to. We also really want to expand our website and what it looks like to connect the people members. And so we want to scope out the plan for what would that be. We know what our existing capabilities are now, but in our ideal state, if we could have people instantly connecting because they have a similar interest on a topic, or if they wanted to be sharing research, or if we wanted to just be more efficient at like holding local events, our website needs to grow and also our database needs to grow and change. And so we want to just take the time to actually scope that out and make sure that we understand the steps so that we can better advocate for funders for needing the money to actually do that. We know what we want, but we haven't done that next layer of detail. And the last one is our volunteer engagement and design. Carrie does a phenomenal job of calling every single person who signs up to volunteer with us and trying to put them in a custom volunteer opportunity. But we really want to look at what are the ways we can make our volunteer engagement process more consistent. How do we have the best experience we can? And how do we make sure that where people's energy and excitement is the projects that they're working on? And so we want to evaluate what we have, make improvements, and implement those improvements is our biggest part for the volunteer engagement process this year. Create a better organization. One that I didn't put on here, and I apologize, I meant to add it, is we also have a facilitation model. So like if you were in DC, a big part of our model is how do we come together, talk about the core issues that we feel like we need to address in order to get a more accountable or responsive government? How do we focus on our shared concerns? So an example would be with the past 2020 election. Where do we have shared concerns on what we want to have happened? And then we go into where do we have shared values and solutions for what this could look like if we did fix it. We do this in meetings, we design meetings this way. We don't actually have it formally written down so that we can share it and so we can train people on it too. And so that's the goal for this year, is to get our facilitation. Okay, I know that was so much and a lot. And here's the actual details of the specific goals. Our voting rights committee last year did a really great job of, we had a completely changing landscape for our country and what it meant to vote and participate. And we created a secure and safe elections challenge, asking people to sign on. We got over 43 people from over 43 states, or 43, not over, I should say, to sign on. They made a robust, beautiful voting resource guide, which if you go to our website, you can find. They also expanded how many people were participating. We had letters to the editor that went out and did a lot of really great work there. And Mike or Betty, I don't know if you guys would want to expand upon this, but for 2021, what the committee has done has tried to break out into work groups to work on specific topics. So one of them is really trying to undertake initiatives to improve voter turnout, voting security, logistics, and legitimacy, and trying to have conversations about what does that mean and what are different laws and policies that are related to increasing turnout, but also increasing voter security and people's ideas and perceptions of voting and the realities of voting in different parts of our country. We want to expand our voting rights guide to be more user-friendly online. I know we want to get it translated in a couple different languages as well, and make sure that people can use it and that people also know that we have it so they can use it. And then there's teams that are working on looking at active legislation that has to do with voting rights so that we can be informed on it. And also if there's a need to take action, that the people could be having a process to do that. Looking at ways, there are a lot of laws that change temporarily for the 2020 election that expanded voter participation. We had the highest year of voter participation, even though we were in a pandemic in our country's history. And so which of those laws would we want to still keep in place? And some of them are rolling back, and some of them they need to hear from people who live there in order to continue to defend. There's a group that wants to look at ranked choice voting, and what does that mean? What does that look like? Does our organization want to look at as a policy? And I think really scoping out the work, figuring out the projects for this year is what we're in the middle of for those committees. A lot of excitement there. And like I said, Mike or Betty, I don't know if either of you want to add to what I would say, or correct me if I said anything wrong.
You said a lot of great things. I would just comment on the last point you made. We're a real crux now, and a lot of the changes that did happen in terms of vote by mail were on a temporary basis, state by state. And now, as I'm sure you've seen and heard, some states were at risk of losing even the progress we made, because there are some proposals that have come up in different states that would actually take it backwards. So we'd certainly like to see what we can do to help preserve the changes that obviously have been very good, and the voters have spoken with their feet, and they like that very much. I'd also like to comment that right now, just the paradigm is that either there are some powerful potential legislation at the national level that would have a good impact on everything from gerrymandering to dark money, etc. It's unclear if those are going to pass. So either those are going to pass and we're going to have nirvana, or it won't pass, which is probably the more likely, and we're going to be in hand-to-hand combat in every state. So probably we'll be doing the latter, which would be the good part of that is it gives us an opportunity to engage with people in different states across the country. And apart from that, I'd comment that David might have a comment on ranked choice voting. Or Fernando, yeah.
Let me get my mute off. I'm sorry. Yeah, so ranked choice voting is kind of one of these big ideas that we've seen come out in the last couple of years. Maine has passed it for their federal elections, and this is something that we think is not only going to give people more choice and allow the two parties to accept more voices in the political sphere, but it also will make elections a lot more civil. If you're counting on people giving you their second choice vote, you're not going to be as nasty in your campaigning. So it's not a perfect thing, but we do think that ranked choice voting can be a good solution to a lot of what's going on in American politics right now. So that's some of the things that we're focusing on and trying to get some solid proposals to move forward as we move towards the convention.
Yes, so if you're interested in that, that's definitely a great place to put your energy and make sure your voice is heard. And of course, before the people takes any kind of formal opinion, will be coming to all of you guys as being on the House of Delegates, as well as our volunteers. So you can have your voice heard then too, but especially if it's something that interests you, I really encourage you to join on now. They have committee meetings, but even if you can only participate over email, those will be read and they can be introduced as well.
Katie, if I could, I'd like to ask real quick. Betty may well have a comment, and also Fernando is here, and he's working on the voter engagement. I don't know if they had a comment or not.
Yeah,
I think you covered everything really well, Mike. It's a great committee, and we welcome any other people who would like to be involved and be a part of that. We'll get the work done, and I'm real proud to be the backup singer for Mike.
No.
And I can add a little bit with the voting engagement. We're focused on improving voting engagement, starting with improving youth turnout. We're looking at partnerships with, we're looking at a lot, kind of like moving forward, but we're looking at what has made the difference in colleges and just a lot of different factors, and we're collecting a lot of data, but we're focused mainly on just getting people motivated and involved in the voting process.
And I just like one more comment. We're in each of these areas, we're trying to first build a good fact base before we get into the controversial parts of it. And in that regard, Paul Burke on our committee came up with the idea of a grade card for each state in terms of how they do with the voting rights. And it's a work in progress, but we've already generated, using people like the National Vote Home Institute and National Conference of State Legislators, et cetera. We're working on building a really good fact base that would be, a follow-up to our voting resource guide in terms of providing good objective information for people to go on. So we think that'll be a good foundation for us wherever we end up.
And for folks who want to stay apprised or maybe give feedback on those specifics, like what would be included in a voting grade card, Terry's been doing a great job, and the committee, I think, is helping too with every week in our Friday newsletter, providing kind of an update of what decisions are being made, what's being talked about. And you can always reply to that with your suggestions so we can make sure that they get put into that space, because we want this to be collective. And especially, again, dealing with people's feedback earlier rather than later is very helpful in us being able to get that action and how much we need to. Thanks, guys. All right. For New Hampshire, so we're doing in-person events in 2020, and obviously the pandemic happened. We had this whole door knocking plan to go to lower income communities and make sure they were filling out our survey, and then we had to reorient everything. And I just want to say that our team on the ground, Terry Wolf, who's on our committee, but also Lisa Nash, who Terry brought in, who isn't on our House of Delegates, but is a great volunteer, really had to think about this innovatively and make a big commitment to, we have to try some things and see how they work out, which required a lot of time and effort and energy on their behalf. And it's been very exciting to see the progress we've been able to make. Also, Ben, who is now a House of Delegates member, was one of our interns for this New Hampshire project, worked very hard to, again, kick us off in the middle of, actually the very beginning of the pandemic, not the middle of it, the beginning of the pandemic, trying to reach out to a bunch of organizations, introduce them to who we were, and actually getting them to like respond and engage with us. So we've had a survey that we've been doing of Granite Staters. We're trying to make sure that it's representative. We want to be able to speak with accuracy or scientific precision on what different ages in New Hampshire think, what different political party affiliations in New Hampshire think on these issues, as well as different economic income. We're also gathering information in other areas, but each time you add another layer, you need like another 100 people. So those are our 3 top ones there, and really trying to get an idea from people on where they feel urgency around accountability and how they're currently being impacted by the government's responsiveness or lack thereof, as well as where do they have energy on what types of solutions they're looking for and excites them. So that's what the survey is aimed to do, so that we can get a representative sample. We've also been doing coffee hours as well as an education series exploring topics like we were just talking about, ranked choice voting, money in politics, how a bill actually gets passed at the level. It was a New Hampshire 101. And we're in the middle of that series, but we had a wide variety of participants from the in-person, the online, just intro calls, which are those coffee hours, and then this education series. So that's kind of our 2020 experience. And then for 2021, we really wanted to do like an DC assembly, an in-person, everybody could come together, we could decide on what the issue is going to be. And that's just not a reality, but we still want to be ready for the next legislative cycle to introduce the people bill to be able to actually take action. And so we need to be able to quantify how people feel and make sure that we get that buy-in and that it is representative, that we do have 70% of the people participating who vote on it. So we're going to be doing a kickoff meeting sometime, perhaps at the middle of the end of March or the beginning of April. We're still kind of finalizing a date, but really to try and be an invitation to folks who are in New Hampshire saying, hey, if you're frustrated by this, or if you're looking to meet people who vote differently than you, but that you want to build a relationship with, we are on that. We want to do that with you and come to this event. We then want to go through a process to choose the reform, and our hope is in the beginning of January to submit our first bill. Part of choosing the reform, that next step will be really going back out to the people of New Hampshire and getting buy-in on what should the specifics of this be. What does, depending on whatever the issue is, there's probably lots of details, like even just changing gerrymandering. There's a million ways you can change it. So what are the ways that the people in that state actually want to change will be part of our goal. Terry, I don't know if you have anything you want to add or not.
So last night we had a conversation about open primaries, and our open primary speaker, she's the head of New Hampshire Independent Voters, but she's also the head of New Hampshire Ranked Choice Voting. And she was fantastic. She did such a good job on open primaries. We did have a small group, but very well received, and I think a lot of enthusiasm. And we're focusing, or she's focusing on ranked choice voting. They've gotten a lot of signups at the November election. They stood outside the polls and got a lot of signups for that. And they're going after that as a priority, because we often talk about what is the root cause, what's the best way that we might be able to drive change. And ranked choice voting, we think, just might be more palatable to our legislature than open primaries, because open primaries, it asks the parties to kind of loosen up a stranglehold, their grasp on the whole process, and we just don't think that's going to happen. So if anybody's looking for somebody, I know Kathy Stewart, her name is Tiani Coleman. Kathy knows her, and maybe some others do. She was just really great if we're looking for a source. I think, COVID has really thrown us for the loop. It's just such a challenge to get people. I think the in-person is such a valuable thing, especially for those of you who were in DC. And so we're just trying to deal with that. And then, we'll be launching, hopefully officially, our reform idea in September.
Thanks, Terry. And again, if anybody has questions or anything, please put them in the chat. I'll take a second to comment on that too, but it's been good. Okay, so our consulting to initiatives. So if you're following our newsletter, or if you are in one of the states where we were working on this, you've probably heard about these initiatives. In Missouri, there was a bill to close the primaries and require people to register for a party. I think it was something ridiculous, like, Kathy, maybe you remember, 180 days before an election, you would have to register, otherwise you couldn't participate in it. So we organized folks to make sure that their voices were heard either way, whether they liked or didn't like that in the legislature. We also, there was a city in Missouri that was doing approval voting, which, these are like, if you don't know about ranked choice voting or approval voting, this might be very confusing, and I definitely want to make sure we can give an update, but it's like a form of ranked choice voting, another way for voters to have more choice and be able to say all the candidates that they like. In Massachusetts, there was a ranked choice voting campaign, so they were very citizen-led. They were looking for best practices on that. In Florida, there was an open primaries campaign. We interviewed the folks who were there. There were 2 students who had started an open primaries chapter, as well as, again, contributed some best practices around how can you really make sure citizens are involved in your campaign and that they will want the change that you're fighting for. And then anti-gerrymandering was a big year because of COVID. There were 8 states that tried to get on the ballot for gerrymandering, but actually almost all of them got thrown off for either technicalities, and a few couldn't gather the signatures during the pandemic. In Oklahoma, it was illegal to gather signatures during the signature gathering period, so they had no other choice but to close the campaign. But we had been working in Virginia a lot. We had been doing our listening series in Virginia and made a decision that we wanted to help out that campaign for the leaders who are in Virginia doing that. And that was a success, actually. The legislature had bipartisan support for putting something on the ballot, and the citizens overwhelmingly voted for it, which is exciting. 2021, like I said, it was a less, without it being a ballot year, there's a lot of less groups who are really looking for help or looking to get connected and see if we can assist, but redistricting is happening this year. So every single state will redraw their congressional lines. So the lines that determine who our congressional members are, your state Senate and your state house, although I know every state calls that something different. So, or your state assembly, whatever wording your state uses, but those will all be redrawn as well. And they will last for the next 10 years. And so really trying to think about what are the resources or best practices we have for that, so that hopefully we get as fair of maps, or maps that are really representative of the people who live there, of their communities as possible, because it will have an impact for the next 10 years. So it's kind of it really is now or never. And so Wisconsin and North Carolina, I don't know why I stumbled on the word Carolina, are two of the states where we've had people reach out to us and want some help in figuring out how can we make a plan, what does it look like. They're both legislative states, so they don't have a citizen ballot initiative process. They're just trying to help really with coalition building at this point, and making sure that we can reach out to lots of different organizations, people, individuals, and we're just going to have a conversation and they'll decide what they want to do, but we can help act as like a facilitator in that conversation and provide some national perspective on that. And we are going to continue. We monthly interview somebody who's trying to make change at the local level. I know some of you on here we've interviewed through a Fulcrum article. It's just a question and answer one. It's the national publication that focuses on reform issues. So we're planning to continue to do that monthly. And then last, but certainly not least, and I have some more slides on this, we do that national convention, take it up a level. We held a virtual one last year. We also, Andrew, right before the election, put out an Instagram post. He got on social media for us, so thanks, Andrew. That was very exciting. And from one Instagram post, one of his very first ones that he did, he just said, you know, hey, we're doing this national meeting. If you're interested, you want to meet other people who maybe vote differently, but you want to be committed towards us taking action together, much like our call for Washington, D.C., join us for a meeting. We actually got a huge response to that. We got over 400 people who responded to that and signed up, which is exciting. And we've continued to see waves of that both after the election, after the insurrection at the Capitol. Pretty much every time we're putting out an invite, we're getting new people coming in and wanting to be a part of this, the thing that you guys, we have all built together, which has been very exciting. So we launched committees at the very end of 2020, and I have those listed on a next page, but to really start organizing what would this look like. In the previous 2 years, the staff has really designed the meeting flow. We've taken input from you guys, but we've definitely had to figure out what are our breakout groups going to be, who's going to run those. And the thing we're doing differently this year is we're trying to have many people in on those conversations and really deciding together what this would look like. Of course, taking what we've already built and the best practices we've built and applying those, but really trying to see how many more people can we get in actually creating this together. So we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to create that prioritized citizen agenda. How can we get even more actionable? And then how can we take action after this big event? No hard deadlines on when this event is going to be yet. There's an idea that maybe we would have it on January 6th as kind of like an anniversary to the insurrection at the Capitol, to say like, hey, here's all the positive work we've done over the last year to try and create a country that is more accountable and responsive, with a bunch of mini meetings leading up to that. There's an idea to still maybe do something in May that would be really big, like our assembly, that maybe there could be a follow-up event too. So lots of conversations about that. And if you have input, we'd love to get you connected on those. To give a little bit more detail, so we're really still designing what this event will look like, but here's just so this is just a draft. But basically right now what we're trying to do is we're trying to organize and design what could this event look like if it was much bigger than the ones we've done in the past. What does that look like? And how do we make sure we're being really intentional about reaching out to the diversity of our country, both individuals, and then are there other organizations who already do great work in lots of communities that can help in? We want to then do like a listening portion of like, what do Americans feel like is really pressing, and what do they feel like is causing their concern around why we don't have a responsive government or why we don't have an accountable government. And we want to be able to quantify what all those different voices are saying and be able to prioritize what are the top issues that people want to talk about and find common ground and that we want to take action on. We then want to take the time to develop what does that shared vision and action plan look like together, both federally and then potentially, depending how many people we recruit, we might even be able to do state level out like breakouts too, because I think as many of us know, there's obviously federal laws that impact this. Mike was doing a great overview of some of those, but your state level laws sometimes are the only way you can take action or are left out of the federal laws. So even if you get a federal law that's banning gerrymandering, that doesn't actually change your state level House districts and how those get run. That has to be changed at the state level. So examples like that might be part of that developing and shared vision action plan, that third one. And the fourth one is taking action and actually doing it, implementing the changes. Again, the thought is still to be able to do that at the federal level, like the Voting Rights Committee has been a great example of, as well as the local level. What we've been hearing, I just wanted to, we have gotten more feedback since this, although the main points haven't changed. When we've been asking all of these new people, as well as all of you who have been showing up to these meetings, what you're feeling most pressing that should come out of this event. We've heard that people really just want to find common ground and get past the partisanship. They want tools, resources, help in doing that, but they also want the experience of doing that. People are hungry. Some people are hungry to talk to folks who vote or hold different beliefs than theirs. They want us to be able to focus on trust and integrity and accountability for our government, elected officials, and media. They want to be able to problem solve that. They have a desire to have their voice be heard, to get active and get engaged, and really wanting to structurally change things for the long term. And for a win, for our event being able to have success, we want it diverse and inclusive, actually reflective of America, both like politically, racially, demographically. Like we want American people to be able to be a part of this process. We want to include a comprehensive action plan and again, that relationship building part. How do we actually have time together so that we can not only listen, share, and try and build community, is what we're continuously hearing from folks. And so that's the input that's being used for planning that agenda. Okay, so I just checked a bunch. So I really want to check in if there's any questions. I'll go back to this page actually on our 2021 goals and priorities, or any of the items that we talked about. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute or put your comment in the chat, just whatever you're most comfortable with. Or if you don't have questions, that's okay too.
I would just have one simple comment.
Yeah.
One more thing on voting rights, again, from Paul. Well, Paul and I talked about this, Paul Burke said, even if we feel that some of the practices are secure, and David's very strong participant in this as well, even if we feel like things are fairly good, accurate, this and that, looking toward the future, even from that, what can we do to make it better? What can we do to make a system that's even more accurate, that people have more confidence in? And we've talked about what can we do with technology that might get around some of the controversies and problems that we have now, and make the system ever better, that we shouldn't be satisfied with where we're at.
Thanks, Mike.
Can
I know, yeah, Chris.
Yeah, can I just make a comment on that voting, since I was part of that? Has anybody changed their mind as far as voter ID for voting?
Can you be more
We
specific?
talked about a lot of things. We talked about maybe David might have a comment on that. Do you, David? Or we've talked about biometrics actually. And with Paul.
Sorry, let me get off mute. Yeah, so one of the things that we've looked at, and it's not really on voter ID, it's more on blockchain voting, which is, secure web-based voting, so that you could vote from anywhere, whether it's your home, anywhere. You have your unique ID and you would be able to vote. And it gives more people more access all over the country to do that.
I think, Chris, though, I think part of where we're at right now as an organization is we want to have that conversation. And even with the national convention, this wider round, election integrity is one of the first topics people want to talk about, especially just people have concerns. And what we want to explore is what would an election system that we have trust in look like? And let's throw out even what we already have, but like, what are the details of that? And what does that mean? What does that look like? I think that your opinion or any opinion on specifics, if it's like wanting an ID required or not, I think we want to make sure your voice is heard and that we can incorporate that in designing what is the best voting system look like. I know in the conversation yesterday, there was a really great question raised around we don't have nonpartisan elections right now. All of the election officials come from a party or elected from a party or appointed by a party. And until we fix that, can we ever really have trust in our political system? We didn't, formally vote on that or agree on that, but it was a really good conversation and part of what I think we're trying to like build and find consensus around.
Okay.
To me, the balance is between what is the system that you need to make sure there's integrity in the system, that there's not fraud or concern. On the other hand, to make sure that you don't have a system that's penalizing people, that their ID should be sufficient. And like you say, you want state voter IDs, but then many times they go against students who have a university ID, which should be valid. So what is the balance on as much as you need, but not more than is required, I guess?
Yeah, and let's get down to those details and try and design the right system, I think is what we want to do.
And quite frankly, if some folks don't have IDs, then let's help them get IDs. But to not have any ID is not acceptable. But to be punitive and to discriminate against people is not acceptable either. So and this might be a good opportunity for people to sit down and really hammer it out and say, okay, what do we really need? What can we figure out that's fair to everybody?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of excitement around it too, is what we're continuing to see, that the 2020 election stirred up a lot of feelings for people and a wide range of experiences. And we can't just ignore that. And we need to be able to rebuild trust in the system, but also have a system that's deserving of trust. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? And what can we advocate for together around that? Where are those areas?
I have a question relating to that. Is there ever a point where the committees bring some of these ideas to the House of Delegates as a whole for a vote? For example, it sounds like the Voting Rights Committee is talking about doing vote by mail as a sort of thing they want to tackle. Is there ever going to be a requirement that they get approval from the rest of us before they sort of just go all in on vote by mail?
Yeah, so we went out to members for the SAFE challenge, and we actually had everybody vote. Well, we invited everybody to vote on what it was with the best practices provided by the Vote at Home Institute for what it means to be able to accurately administer elections that include voting by mail, but also include even just counting procedures. It's a really detailed report, and we sent that out and people voted on it, and we had over 70% of our House of Delegates members, as well as our membership, who said, yes, we're good with endorsing this and on with this challenge. So anything that's really specific and a specific recommendation, that is going to that.
And I think, Jared, we're looking the same way. Right now, we're trying to develop these ideas and have them be fully formed. And then at such time as we'd be interested in having the whole organization reach out through social media or whatever. At that point, we bring it to the House of Delegates, I believe, and make sure that everybody understands it and everybody's on board. But yeah, they would follow that model that Katie just lined out, is what we did last year with the SAFE Challenge.
Yeah, so that is the procedure. So I think these are just ideas that are being discussed. And again, especially if you have energy around them, either the way we're talking about them or not the opposite, we definitely want to make sure your voice is heard. Easy way to do that, if you don't have time for another committee, is the newsletter and being able to read those updates, and then we can make sure everything gets back to everybody.
Because here's the problem right now with this election. You got half the country that thinks it's fraudulent, half the country is happy, and this is going to go on as long as I live and you live. Nobody's ever going to be happy. But this is a very simple solution. We are all born with an ID. It's called the Social Security number. You don't have to go mail it. You don't have to go sign up for it. There's no excuse. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't get there. You're discriminating me because I'm white, Jewish, black, so. Everybody's born with a Social Security number. We all have it. If you don't have one, you're not born in this country or you're not a citizen. So you shouldn't vote. Once you put your Social Security number, it'll come up if somebody used mine 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. It doesn't matter. It's very simple, but they don't want to fix it. Because to Betty's question, how do we come together? It's very simple. Nobody's born hating black people, white people, gay, straight. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I want to be a junkie. I want to go out and be a robber. We are trained by the idiot box, by the media, and by the both political parties, Republicans and Democrats. You know, one teaches you to hate and one trains you. So we have the tools.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to do. I mean, that's what I think.
It's very easy. The idea is you're born with it. It's very simple to throw in these morons up in Washington right in their face. We want ID and we all have it. It's called the Social Security number.
I mean, think
this is so simple to me. I don't get it.
I think what. Well, and I think what our goal is too is how can we, Chris, get to that level of agreement? And like, if we do all agree with what you just said, which we might or we might not, I'm not going to assume either way. Let's agree on that. And then let's use our collective power to change the laws that they have to. How do we use the strategies and our own power to take it away from those in power who benefit from a system that doesn't work and that doesn't provide people to feel secure in it? And I actually feel like we're in a very good position this year to make some real progress on that, including with round voting. But we have to get to that agreement on what are the things that we do agree on. And that's what I think the Voting Rights Committee is very actively trying to do.
Okay. I mean, with a Social Security number, you can do it by mail. You can go in there and present it. There's only one number. If my
Mike,
number
are
comes
you hearing this feedback?
You know, it's so simple. I just don't get why people fight it.
Chris is my buddy.
Yes,
Mike,
Chris.
Well,
I'll make sure that the feedback gets delivered. But also, I feel like, Chris, if we can find a way for you to get engaged in that committee too, that would be great.
I was engaged in that committee, and I was against the mail-in ballots, but I gave it a chance, and look what happened. Here we are.
Get outvoted. Welcome
right,
to
Mike?
All right, I want to.
I voted with you, right? I says I'll be more than happy to come down the middle. I said, but look where we are now, right? But I mean, this all can be straightened out in time, but it's going to take time.
It will. Exactly. I think so. And I think that, Chris, that was a really great example too, where you were part of the process. It didn't necessarily go the way, but you were willing to give it a shot. And I thought that was very admirable over the last piece. So I want to make sure that we can stay on time with our agenda. Is there any other questions about these goals before I move on? And Terry, I saw your comment. Yes, it is a lot. I think this is the meat of it. We have an agenda or a budget that hopefully can get us there, and it will require. We have an executive board, as you guys know. I've gone to them and kind of laid out some different volunteer roles that we need filled from them. We've gotten pretty clear internally about other volunteer roles or increased capacity for technology, things like that we feel like we'll need. But the budget is a big part of why we're here tonight. So I'll start with the expenses, which is this second part. I don't know if you guys can see when I move my mouse or not, but it's expenses part. So the first column is our 2020 actual, what we either raised or what we spent. And then 2021 is for this year, our proposed budget. We are going down, we have gone down in staff from 2020 to 2021. But with this staff, we feel like we can manage these programs, but we do need to fill some of those volunteer roles. We also, if you go to the income part, we have relied the last couple of years on a couple of really big individual donors. So some millionaires who were willing to give $20,000, $50,000 really because we were in startup mode. But we have always had a vision of wanting to be more funded by the American people. And what does that look like? And how do we get a lot of small donations that can lead up to having our total budget? And that's a big shift that you'll see from 2020 to 2021. One of the ways that we plan to do that are events. We've been doing some different fundraising events related with the Slay the Dragon documentary that our work in Michigan was featured in. Held one in Boston. Two of our executive board members, Sandy Petersky and Ken Himmelman, both live in Boston. They were willing to reach out to their networks, and it was fairly a pretty good return. And we're hoping to do at least one of those a month throughout the year, especially because this is the year redistricting is happening. Our hope is we can raise about $10,000 at each of those events. And that will be part of the reason why our individual donations will go up. The other thing that's really exciting, though, is that we set a goal last year around monthly donations, and we didn't quite reach how many reoccurring monthly donations we have, but it did increase, and we're seeing that increase rise with our work for the National Assembly, as well as some of our other work that we've been doing through our programming, that as we're getting more people connected, they see value in the organization and they want to give $5 a month or $10 a month. And all of that adds up, and it also helps us have a secure number that we can then guarantee is going to be in for that next month, which is really helpful. The one thing I wanted to mention, so I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with the payment protection plan loans that the government gave out. It was related to businesses who were impacted by COVID. One of the most starkest examples of this is we literally had a fundraising event in New York. We had, I think, 25 people show up, and that was the day before all of New York closed, like before there were no more trains going into New York. And we had a great event, but the follow-up for getting people to then give donations, all of them made pledges at the event, and the next day they said, the stock market's going crazy. I don't know if I'm going to have a job. The world's going crazy. Come back to us, and I'd still like to donate in the future, but I need to really hold on. And we had that from a couple people last year too. That definitely impacted us. Thankfully, we were able to get that loan. It was forgiven because we just gave it, for the loan to be forgiven, you had to spend it on either like direct infrastructure. We don't have a building, so there's nothing that way, or direct employees and making sure people could stay employed. So we got that loan in 2020, but we technically got it forgiven, and we have gotten it forgiven in 2021. So that's why you see that $77,000 deficit. We didn't actually have that deficit. It's just how we need to record it for our audit. We technically spent the money in 2020, and we technically got it forgiven in 2021. So that's an example there. There was another round of the payment protection plan loans that just came out at the end of President Trump's presidency. We did receive that. It is in our bank. It will be, in all likelihood, it will be forgiven in 2021. So that's very exciting. So you'll see that line item. For the 2021 budget, it's taking that $77,000, and then for this most recent one, because we reduced staff, we're at $56,000 for this PPP loan, which again should be forgiven. So that's why that is all there.
Real quick question, Katie.
Yes, yeah.
The grants, the foundation grants that we're working on, is that foundation donations? Is that where that comes in, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had one of our foundations that is given to us has been New Profit for both our initial year and actually last year. They've given over $150,000 between those two, but their organizational models, the max they will help with is 2 years in a row. So we know that we won't be getting that. We have an amazing grants committee that several of you are on, including you, Mike. And so we still are expecting to get about $60,000 worth of revenue there, but we don't have any guarantees. So that's why we set that number. It felt realistic. Hopefully we get more, would be the plan. We still want to find some of those larger donors. We've got about $100,000 in major gifts. So major gifts are things that we consider to be $10,000 or more. We've got a couple people that we have in mind to go ask, but we definitely were looking for more. If any of you are millionaires or have friends who are, who can give bigger ones, that would be great. Please let us know. But thankfully, Andrew is very, very helpful on that front and has really been working not only his networks, but as he's invited to different events, he's always talking about the people. And I just want to say from a board president perspective, how much he has single-handedly focused on fundraising has been phenomenal. And we're very grateful for that and his continued work to do that. And even with these Slay the Dragon events, these event fundraisers, it's still tapping into his network, just that next layer of network that can give a smaller, but feel okay about it. The exciting part is, so we're a startup. So it's very normal that a startup doesn't have its full year funded yet. It's still stressful, I will say, to be like, okay, in 7 months, if we don't raise any more money, we're all out of jobs. But what's exciting is right now we basically have runway, or we can stay at current operating as well as doing things like paying for Zoom and a website until August. This little side note over here, the fundraising needs. With what we have in the bank and what we have been able to secure so far, we've raised about half of the budget, basically. There's a $12,000 match that came from our Slay the Dragon event. So we need people to match that $12,000 and $12,000 in order for us to get it. But I feel pretty confident that through individual donors, we will be able to do that. I know some of you guys are already monthly donors or have given, so all of those contributions can go towards counting towards that. So that's why I feel fairly confident we'll get that. The PPP did come through, and then our monthly reoccurring donors, we have around 40 of them, and the total amount is around $1,000 per month. So we already had January, or is around $1,300 a month. I'm sorry. We already had January happen, so that's why that's a $12,000 number, because the January amount is already in the total bank. So we need about $126,000 more to raise, which will mostly come through grants, individual donors, and those events that I talked about, and then some from the main. This isn't increasing staff. I think we really wanted a conservative budget so that we could meet it. And then we, of course, want to be raising more than that. We do have some debt from a EIDL loan. That was another government loan that we were able to secure last year that was very low finance, but we need to pay it back eventually. So we have that loan out there. We want to make sure that we can be raising money for that. And really for our capacity, there's so much more we want to do. We obviously want to be growing staff. There's a couple of prospects out there. We've got one big grant that might work out that would double our budget. It would be a $500,000 grant. There's also a $10 million competition grant that we've been talking with the organizers of, that they've really encouraged us to apply for. It'll be a lot of work. None of that's a guarantee, which is why I didn't want to put it in the budget, because we don't know that it's going to come in. And
can I add just a
Yes.
couple of things? May I?
Please.
One thing about grants and foundations, just some institutional knowledge, and that usually foundations will not fund you if you're too new. They will wait for the second year before you see that cycle come around. So it's encouraging that we're getting there. So know that I think there's going to be a better year just because of it.
Thanks,
now,
Lupe.
regarding a $500,000 grant or $1 million grant, these situations often happen, but it's rare that you will get more than what you already operate with. So as a rule of thumb, it's only 10% of your operating budget that they will give you, unless you're matching it with something else. So think about those kind of things.
Yes, thanks, Lupe. I think that's really helpful. And that's also part of why I was feeling like, we've got the opportunity, which is really exciting. It's exciting that we're an innovative enough organization where we're being considered, but I don't want to assume that we're going to get them, because I think a lot of the institutional knowledge tells us that we probably won't.
But moving forward in your next year's budget, you may want to consider a 10% increase on each year on your grants. So you get a little bit more moving forward. It's just a rule of thumb.
Yeah, thanks, Lupe. We can take that into consideration and be doing that from now. And even when looking at this year, I think the new profit part is like part of why I lowered it, but that's really good to hear. And I think a good rule of thumb to be thinking of as we're setting those goals too. Because it's a lot of estimating. We have a little bit of history that we can be informed on, and then we know our resources for people helping us, but it's a lot of guessing. So Any other questions on this? We've got about 15 minutes left in the meeting, and I want to get through the volunteer opportunities, but this is the meat of the meeting, both our goals and the budget. So would love any other questions, comments, things I can answer. We did have an audit this past year. We will likely have another one this year. Faster audit with flying colors, but they're the ones who gave us the feedback on how we need to account for the loans that we did have and got forgiveness on. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to add on that, but it was the nice part about having an audit. We didn't have that our first year, so we've had that last year, our second year, and we can then also provide that to foundations or organizations who are evaluating our financial health. So I'm glad we did that last year. And if any of you want to see that, I can give it to you also.
Have you thought about making masks as a way to raise money, since we're going to be wearing them for as long as we live?
I like the idea, Chris. Do you know how to sew? Because
listen, I have a guy that makes them. He charges me like $5.
Yeah.
I get them sometimes, and I give them out like to restaurant people that I go to, you know, because in New York we still go underground, because as far as I go, I don't believe in this COVID BS. I lived through it and the BS deaths, and a couple of my friends that won't even let the family do the autopsy after the fact to see if they really died from COVID. But that's not even the question here.
Yeah, I mean, apparel. Yeah, if you know a guy, I'd love to talk to him. And I think too, if anybody has any suggestions for things that you'd be interested in getting, like people swag, like shirt, sweatshirt, hat, and you think that like you would like that and maybe be interested in doing it, that, you know, we have it is, oh, it's on my more detailed budget. Oh no, it is on here, merchandise income. So we made $100 from that last year we have buttons, flash drives, t-shirts, but we are hoping that this year we can increase it with the National Assembly and increasing that. There's a lot of people who want the t-shirt. They want to be able to have our logo and go out and talk to people about it. They also want to donate to the organization, but they want to do that as both. So that's why we increased that number. But I think ideas like masks, if we felt like it could be helpful. I mean, we should explore it if people are serious about wanting different items, whatever they might be.
I know in New York, everybody wears them except me. Me and my family are the only ones in New York that don't wear
Maybe
them.
you'd wear the people one, huh, Chris? We'll see.
No, I refuse to put a muzzle on. It's all right. I'd rather die as a free man to live as a slave. Now you got to wear two. So, I mean, maybe we could do, you know, two for $8 or $5 each. I don't know, whatever, something.
Okay, all right. So I'll follow up on that. That's great, and thank you for the suggestion. I think it's a really good idea too to think about that. As we're even thinking about this assembly, I mean, the past couple ones have been around 100. This past year, a similar amount. We're hoping, you know, we could commit multiple thousands of people this next time, and so like something small, either like a mask or a pin or something. It could be a great, again, it's a way to show unity with each other, but also help support us being able to actually do this and deliver on these results. So
I'm going to try and have one made from this guy, and maybe I'll send it to you. You take a look at it.
All right, that sounds good. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on though, so I can get you guys out of here on time. And if there are more comments, I'm happy to stay on and continue to talk about the budget, or you can email them. And if you want everybody to know those comments, I can make sure they get to everybody too. But I just want to make sure we don't miss out on the most important part. So last meeting, we talked a lot about, for you guys as people who run this organization, as our board, our House of Delegates, we really want to find that sweet spot of like, why are you personally interested? Where is most of your energy? What is the resource you have to give? Is it time, talent, connections, beautiful wisdom like Chris and Lupe just gave us on both a mask idea and a fundraising idea for how to think about our grants. All of that's really valuable and things that we do need. And then the last is the opportunity. What are our actual programs so that we can hopefully find where you're most passionate and your skills and that you and resources that you would like to give. So I'm going to pass it over to Carrie since she's our volunteer coordinator. And Carrie, I'm happy to help add in wherever you need me to, but I'll let you kind of explain our current opportunities.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. And yeah, I'm looking at this list and I think we have really covered a lot of these already. So I probably won't need to spend a ton of time on each of them, but I'd like to just highlight some of them. And I'll just work from left to right on your screen, and starting with the Voting Rights Committee, which we've talked quite a bit about this evening. A lot of opportunities and a lot of ways to get plugged in, doing some research. And I think Mike talked about, you know, voter turnout, voter security, perceived legitimacy. We've talked about ranked choice voting and a lot of other ways to possibly make an impact. So they meet on Tuesdays, the first and third Tuesday of the month at 8 p.m. If you're interested in joining that committee, I'll just let you know that all of the links for all of our committees for our House of Delegates, you can access those through the newsletter. They're always right at the top of the newsletter every week that goes out. You'll have a calendar of which committees are meeting that week, and the link will be there. The only links that I don't put in the newsletter are internal operations and governance, because that's only open to House of Delegate members. So if you would like to visit either one of those committees, you're welcome to give me a call or send me an email. I'm happy to send out the Zoom line and the information to you. We talked briefly about Community Hour. They meet every Wednesday at 8 p.m. and it really is a time to engage, build community with people from across the country. We've also talked about having a dedicated a topic or an issue to discuss, maybe once a month, open that up for a more formal, structured conversation. And if you're interested in helping us plan or coordinate that, we would love to have some help do that. Then Katie was talking about our national convention planning. We meet as a large group every other week on Wednesday nights on Zoom at 9 o'clock. And that's, I think it's been running about 50 people on Wednesday nights. And then on the weeks that we don't have that, all of the convention committees meet. So you can see on your screen the times that they meet. Recruitment, we're meeting on Friday of this week. And the fundraising group, they meet on Thursday. And that's particularly targeted for fundraising for this specific national planning convention. The event agenda, that group is actually going to be planning what's going to happen at the event, the program, as well as, you know, content, speakers. And if you're interested in that, they would love to have your input. The marketing group is working on materials to help promote the event. And they meet at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays. And the post-event action is a group that's going to be working on, after the national convention, how do we go from there, and what are we going to do to put into practice and put into action the things that were determined at the convention. So would really, I know a lot of you are already involved with that. There's a list there of the House of Delegate members that are currently already on committees specifically pertaining to the national convention planning. So if you would like to join, you can look in your newsletter, or you can shoot me an email. I'm carrie@thepeople.org. And then regarding the New Hampshire, the state pilot, Katie mentioned that they're having a large event coming up in the end of March or April. And one of the things that she mentioned that they're specifically looking for is marketing help. So if you have any experience in marketing, or you know someone who does, we need you. So again, you can reach out to us, or you can put a comment in chat if you're interested in helping out with that. So going down to the playbook, Katie talked a little bit about that. It's kind of a how-to for each of the states to be able to take our model and implement it. One of the things that we're specifically looking for to help with that is people with campaign experience. So if you are interested in that, you can let us know. So we're currently looking for help with people with website, specifically WordPress right now, helping us to make updates to the website. We've got a lot of things that need to be changed and kept up to date, and a lot of us don't have HTML and WordPress experience. So if you do, we need you. Video projects, we would really like to do a lot more, especially using video to promote the people and the things that we're working on social media. So we've had a few. If you've been keeping up with us on social media recently, I do have a volunteer that's been helping me, but we'd be able to do a lot more if we have people with video editing experience, but we also need people to reach out to our volunteers and kind of get some videos from them. So if you're interested in more of the volunteer engagement of that project, we can use help on both ends. And finally, in this area, we will always be open to any newsletter submissions. Some of the things that we were thinking about doing in the newsletter were a civics 101, where maybe we talk about some of the things that we've mentioned on this call that a lot of voters across the country aren't familiar with, like ranked choice voting, or what is open primaries and how does it affect me in my state. So if you would be interested in writing an occasional article for that, we'd love to have that. Or if there's a particular campaign or something that you would like to keep us up to date on that you've been following and do periodic updates, that would be great. So anyways, you can reach out to me if you're interested in helping with that project at all. And then in the far right column, we have listed all of our committees: volunteer engagement, fundraising, internal ops, and governance, grant writing committee, are all active and looking for volunteers. I know, like I said before, a lot of you are already participating in these committees. Volunteer engagement, we just finished up with a letter to the editor campaign, which we're just waiting on final approval for that, and we'll get it up on the website. But if you don't have time to participate in the committee and you'd like to just do something to help the cause, an easy one-off thing that you can do is write a letter to the editor. So we'll be posting on the website instructions how to do that. We've got a tool of how to find out local newspapers in your area so that you can reach out in your local community. And we also have templates that we wrote that are sample letters that you can use as examples to follow. So that's going to be coming soon, I hope, very soon. We also have, there's two ladies, Sonia and Gentry Curry, who help me. They write thank you notes to people who donate online donations. And if that's something that you would like to do, it's not a big time commitment. We provide you stamps and thank you notes, but if you would be interested in just writing handwritten thank you notes to donors, that would be great. And then lastly, we're working on this in two areas, with the Volunteer Engagement Committee and also with the National Convention Planning Recruitment Committee. But just really reaching out, as Katie mentioned at the beginning, we had, we really want our House of Delegates to be representative, but we want all of our volunteers and we want our National Convention to be representative of the national population. So we're specifically looking to reach out to people of color and organizations and conservatives to bring those people in and get them involved in our organization. So if you're interested in that, if you have any contacts that you think would be worth reaching out to, I'd love to hear from you and get you connected with either the Volunteer Engagement Committee or the Recruitment Committee.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. It is a lot. And we have a quick poll. So I know some of you are already in some of these. So we're asking everybody to put in the chat where you're most interested. If you're already connected to one of them and you just want to put the one that you're already connected to, that would be great. We can actually download the chat after the meeting. And if you aren't connected and you need to be connected, we can do the follow-up with you. You don't have to. So if everybody wants to take it, that would be great. And I really need to get Jeopardy music just to have. So I can play it for these times. But I don't know if we have anybody who's just joining by phone, but Voting Rights Committee is if you want to put in the chat, number 1, Community Hours, number 2, National Convention is 3, New Hampshire is 4, Creating the People's Playbook is 5, website is 6, video projects is 7, newsletter is 8, volunteer recruiting and engagement is 9, fundraising committee is 10, internal ops, which is like our financial statements and HR policies, is 11, governance committee is 12, letter to the editor campaign is 13, grant writing is 14, handwritten thank you notes is 15, and diversity recruiting, organizations, individuals, you have strategies, you want to be a speaker for us to help do that, is 16. Last but not least. So awesome. All right. And the very last thing, we like using every single minute of your time. we've had several amazing interns when it comes to social media. We do our newsletter, and we put a lot of content out into the world. But the way a lot of algorithms work on social media is that you need engagement. You need people not only to like, but also comment in order for our post to be shown to more people, even people who already like our page. But also for a lot of our events, we're creating like our New Hampshire series, like we put them in different places on Facebook or tag different organizations on Twitter when trying to advertise, and it will help our work go further. And so we wanted to, for any of you guys who are on social media a lot already, and you might be interested in helping us just comment when we're asking different questions, or try and show an example of like what it means to like find common ground with people. We're looking for a team of folks who might be interested in this. We weekly meet to talk about what our posts are for the week. We could send you that as like a little recap. You wouldn't have to look at it, but we can even let you know like what days we're planning to post on stuff. If you have comments on that, or even if you had one that you were like, oh, I really love this idea, I can be the first to comment. We're just trying to see if there are folks who are already wanting to engage who can maybe help us with this goal to increase what that looks like and raise our awareness. We still do like all the monitoring, all that. We're not asking you to have to respond to people who might be negative. You know, there's a lot of cynical people out there, so we'll handle all of that. But it's more to kind of just show what people think and show an example of ways we can. Did I capture that correctly, Carrie? Let me know.
Yeah, just that it really helps with the, they will show our post to more people if there's more action on it. So if you can just like, comment, or share, it will spread the word.
Yeah. And so, like I said, especially if there's one social media platform that you use more than another and you wouldn't mind, we'll find an easy way to engage. But if you want to just comment in the chat or send us a private message, either on the chat or in an email, we would love to do that, and we'll figure out the easiest way to do that. But yeah, we'd appreciate that. All right, that was everything on our end. I just want to say thank you guys so much for your thoughts on how what you want for this next year. Would still love to hear any other thoughts on how you feel like we are hitting that bar, or we're going to be missing that bar, or things you think are really important for each of our strategies we've laid out. I'm, like I said, I'm available to stay on the line, but really excited. And next time we'll be meeting, we'll be talking about how we can be recruiting to increase who's on the House of Delegates, as well as talking about progress updates on all the things we have been working on and what we want to do over the next year. So we'll talk later in the year, but thank you guys so much. So nice to see everybody.
Grails. Nos vemos.
All right. And for anybody who's still on, I don't know if you have any questions, but I'm happy to take them, or comments or feedback.
Katie?
Yeah.
Before I leave, I just want to know if Andrew's still on, if he ever got my text message, or I just sent it to the wrong phone number. I don't know if he's still there.
Andrew, I don't know if he's in a place where he can respond, but I do see he's still on the line. I can follow up with him too, Chris, and send you, is text the best way to respond to you, or email?
Email is fine, or text is fine, either one.
Okay.
Probably text is better. I look at them more.
Okay. Andrew and I meet tomorrow morning, so I'll ask him and I'll text you. Or I'll have him text you.
Very good. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care,
Talking to your
guys.
mask guy. I'm sending you an email about that.
I should see this guy by Friday or Tuesday. I don't know. I'll design it.
Okay.
Maybe I'll put the logo together and decide talk to each other, not over each other. Something to that effect.
I like it.
Where you talk to each other, not over each other. Something to that effect.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
I'll work on it.
Nice to see you.
Okay, you too. Take care, girls.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Gentlemen, kids, everybody on there.
Dogs, my dog's here.
All right. All right, take care.
Quick question about that grant. You said there was some sort of competition grant going on. What's like a basic summary of that? Like, what's the competition?
Yeah, so it's through Iconic, which is like an investment thing for like millionaires. I should be able to say it better, but like Mark Zuckerberg puts his investments there. And so they also help people try and figure out their investments for charity. And so they're having a democracy competition, and it's based off of competitions that they've had before, which is, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I could send it to you directly, Gerard, too, but it's like systems change. What is it called? Paige isn't on, is she? It's like a systems change. And so they've had one on like, how do we help? They've had them on different categories, but they've never done democracy. And so what will happen is like, basically they lay out like a, hey, give us your $10 million plan for how we could make a more accountable, responsive government. And they have like a series of advisors who are also the people investing their money to the prize winners. And they'll meet with you like over a couple different months to just explore different questions with you, like some of our volunteers, some of our partners, to talk through that plan, what it would look like. They maybe even help build it. And then they decide based on some kind of criteria, what they feel like will actually change the system the most and who they want to award the money to. There's at least a first place winner. And then I think there's a couple runner-ups too that get less money.
Does the organization have like any sort of partisan lean, or like what's their gist? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's just individual people who want to give their money towards a specific cause. And so that it's like, yeah, it's just like a banking thing. But I could send the info on it too, so that you could evaluate that for yourself. I think the people giving this prize money I think it is one of the Facebook founders who isn't Mark Zuckerberg. And I think it's another tech person too. And I don't know their if they have personal political statements or anything like that. The contest is nonpartisan, for sure, but I know that, how it will be judged, I'm sure will be influenced by the
That's
people.
what I'm saying. I just want us to win. I'm not actually concerned. I'm just thinking about like what would be the best way to win the money.
Yeah, I'll send you the info on it. There's a one pager we just got. So I'll send it to you. That would be awesome.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to, something about systems change. What is the name of it? Theory or? Any other questions from anybody? All right. I think we're good then.
I have a quick question. So I recorded it, so I should definitely be able to download the chat from that. But just in case, how do I do it?
I don't
beforehand, because I don't have. I'm looking at instructions online, and I don't have.
So I think you click on the chat, and then on the chat there's like 3 dots that say save chat.
It's those 3 dots. Yep. Thanks. Okay.
I just thought of a follow-up question. I had forgotten it before, and now I remember it.
Yeah.
What would be the proper mechanism within the organization if we had like a concern about a committee? Like, right, if we wanted to register an objection to something, like, is there a way that you would prefer us to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think you could always send an email to like me directly or somebody on staff directly, so that if there's any like conversation we need to have or things that we could bring up to like, I guess it's like the before the super formal part, if that makes any sense. Like if it's more like hey, we have concerns, let's talk about them, then we can help make that happen. So part of how we started the Voting Rights Committee was out of a concern that Mike had and had sent an email about, actually saying like, hey, I really want to take action on this and our policy committee isn't getting far enough down the line, blah, blah, blah. And then we started this. I think from there, my thought would be that, so technically in our bylaws, we have it where like anybody who has anything that they want to bring up to the wider House of Delegates can submit that beforehand to either Andrew or I, and we're required to like put it on the agenda for the House of Delegates meeting.
Gotcha, but the next one of those is in like 3 months, right?
Yeah, so I think in the in-between, it could go to the governance committee, but I hope that if there's like any concerns that we could try and mitigate it beforehand without.
So you think the best way to do that would be just like email you and say like, hey, I noticed that this group seems to be focusing on this issue. I don't think it's nonpartisan. Instead of just emailing you is probably the best way to do it.
Probably, yeah. And then it will be documented too. So then like we could show that like, hey, here's the interventions that we have tried already, so that when it comes up to the wider committee, we could show that.
Okay, cool.
And then I think if you were like uncomfortable sending it to me, you could send it to Andrew. If you're uncomfortable sending it to Andrew, then I think it would probably the governance committee would be the right way. But I hope there's nothing you're uncomfortable bringing up to us, but I totally understand.
No, no. Wait. But so governance committee, that one's confusing because I'm on governance committee and that doesn't seem like what we do at all. Do you want that to start being a thing we do?
Well, Sandy as being executive board secretary, since she's the chair of that committee or one of the chairs. Is she the chair? I think she's the chair.
I think she's the chair.
This is my dog. One of them. She's like, hello, attention. She would be able to then like formally add it to the agenda, I guess is my train of thought. But I think you bring up a good point that we can make that more clear. And we have like an onboarding packet for new House of Delegates members, which we definitely didn't have when you first joined, Gerard. But I think that could be something we could add into that too, just to make it clear so everybody knows.
And that is something that will be on our agenda come summer. So
the onboarding packet.
Yeah, the onboarding packet.
Yeah, that's what we'll be working on.
And then speaking of onboarding, since a couple people it seems have stepped down as House of Delegates members, is there like a special vacancy filling process, or are we just going to wait till the next slate comes on?
Terry and I were just talking about that. We actually wanted to throw that to the governance committee to see if the governance committee could look at the bylaws and see. We have a way to do it for the executive committee, kind of, except we still need a formal House of Delegates vote. So we could do a vote over email to do that. But we haven't done that yet. And I do think it's actually something we should consider, because once a year, like we have a lot of really great leaders who have been hopping on, who fit a lot, like are in new states, are conservative, or are different demographics that we're missing. Like we don't have anybody who's Asian on our House of Delegates right now. And we have several Asian volunteers. So like, I would love to see if we could do it sooner rather than later, but also I think we don't want that to be the norm. So I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. And then anything specific? I know Elena emailed you about like talking to you at some point in the near future. So I'll bring specifics up to you then.
Okay,
that's
cool.
all for now. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I replied to it with Matt, who helps us with scheduling.
Gotcha. Yeah, so just whenever you guys are free, then we'll talk about that. That's sort of like a side issue, and I don't want to like waste everyone's time here on that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Cool. All right, have a good one. Bye, guys.
Yeah, see you, Gerard. Thank you. Cool. Okay, Betty, Fernando, Andrew, you guys good? I'm guessing yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I did save the chat, Carrie, too, in
Okay,
case
good. And I should be able to, since we recorded it, but after what happened last time, I just want to double check. So
yes, okay, good. All right. Oh, I talked a lot. I'm glad Sarah left for that marketing committee. I actually was like, oh no, I just got a notification.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we always have more people turn out than actually respond to the calendar invitations. That was good. It was nice to see some people that I haven't seen in a long time. So
yeah, good.
Anything specific you want me to follow up on other than just downloading the recording in the chat?
I mean, I think it might be good to send out just like some kind of email to, we don't have to do it tonight, but I wonder if tomorrow morning we should send like just a follow-up email being like, we could include the PowerPoint, and then we could say, hey, and maybe we even just like put a picture of the slide that had all the opportunities for how to get involved, and just saying like, thanks for joining, and maybe the vision board too would be like another picture we'd want. I also like the idea of maybe putting the vision board in the newsletter.
Okay, I can add the new ones that were submitted on chat.
Oh, good. I wasn't sure if when I checked the chat, you could see it or not when I was reading it. No? Okay, good. I'm glad. Because a couple of people sent me private messages. So I was like, oh no, I don't want to read this. Okay. So I wasn't really watching, so I'm glad that they did. I'm glad we got new ones.
Okay.
But to me, that seems good.
All right.
Awesome.
Go take a break, eat some food you probably haven't eaten.
My dinner's literally sitting here staring at me and I'm like, ah.
Okay, I'll see you.
Bye,
tomorrow.
bye, Carrie.
Have a good night.
You too.